everybody. Hi, welcome to today's Tiny Tune-Up. Today we're going to be talking about sustainable aging, sort of my passion and what I'm trying to spread through the world. The idea of being able to feel great in every decade of your life and not just resigning yourself to the fact that as you get older you start to feel terrible. It is a running joke that I hear all the time. As we age, we have to accept all of these terrible discomforts and pains in our body. And yes, of course, as we age, our body will break down, but it does not have to break down as quickly or as much as it seems to be accepted. We definitely can feel really good in our 40s and our 50s and our 60s and 70s and beyond. And this is one of the core concepts of the Yamana work and body sustainability in general. So hello, I see a couple people watching there. Say hello if you're here. Let me see if I can see comments. Okay, yeah. And if you're watching on replay, give me a hashtag replay so I can find you and respond to you if you have any questions. So again, we're talking about sustainable aging today, and I want to share 3 really basic little kind of like litmus tests almost that you can do to kind of check in with yourself and see where you are now and how that will bode for you moving into the future. So before we get started on the actual tips, let me just explain a little bit about the concept of structure, rules, function. Okay, so the structure of our body and the framework of our body will ultimately determine how well it functions. Yes, certain times things, and if things are not functioning really well, that can also affect our structure. But if the structure is not sound, if the structure and the foundation are not optimal, the function will also not be sound or optimal. So what we're going to talk about today is specifically the structure of our body and how you can check in with various parts of your body to kind of gauge how well that's going to progress into the future. So if we think about our bodies as having, I'm going to be super basic, super simple with this. Now, of course, we can really dive deep into all of these concepts, and that's what I do in my programs, but what I want to share with you today is really going to be very simple, very understandable, very palatable. So if you think of dividing your body up into 3 sections, basically, the lower part, the middle part, and the upper part, it doesn't get any more simple and basic than that, right? So we have the lower part, which we kind of think of from the sort of, the legs and the feet, the middle part being basically the pelvis, and then the upper part being everything from the pelvis up. This is not a scientific division, okay? So this is just my way of kind of describing this. Hi, I see a few more people jumping on there. Good to see you. Hey, Tara, my dear, how are you? Okay, so if we start with the lower part and work our way up, we're going to be able to get a sense of how well is our body functioning, how well is our structure carrying us through the aging process, okay? So what we're going to do is work with just a couple of simple tools, and even one of the exercises doesn't even have a tool. And that's what I love about all of this work that I do and this whole concept of body sustainability. It doesn't require a lot of gadgets and gizmos. Some of you might have seen my post last week. I made a collage of probably just a small fraction of some of the ads that I've been getting lately for these pretty intriguing tools and gadgets that can help one part of your body. So I get a lot of ads for a hip flexor tool, for example, where it's really just designed to release your hip flexor. And this is a small portion of your body, right? And I get ads for all of these other things too, where it's for your foot, or it's for your neck, or it's for your back, or your upper back, not your lower back, just your upper back, right? So all of these tools are really great tools. I'm definitely not knocking the tools, but what they are lacking is a sense of cohesiveness. There's no system to them, there's no education to them, and most importantly, if you want something for more than one area of your body, it requires a lot of these gadgets, right? You have to have this whole collection, and none of them are designed to work together, none of them are designed to create a through line for you. There's not a system or a process to help you with that aging process. So enter me and my system, which is really very simple, using just a couple of Yamana tools and then some other modalities that don't even use tools, like Pilates and moving mindfully and things like that. So let's start back to the specifics of today. Let's start by talking about our lower body. So the first thing that we want to do when we're talking about aging sustainably and feeling great in every decade of our life, is noticing what kinds of things are you able to do or not able to do. So let's start with the lower part of the body, and I'm going to stand up here. This can be done on the floor without a tool. If you happen to have a Yamuna foot wakers, that will enhance your experience because it will give you something to plug into, to root down into. But if you don't have foot wakers, I would just stand flat on the floor, and if you practice yoga before or dance or anything that talks about rooting down to go up, then this concept will make sense to you. And if you haven't practiced those and that doesn't make sense to you, that's okay too. I'm going to explain it a little bit. So let me back up here. Let me get rid of this error message popping up. All right. So the first thing I want you to do, make sure I can stay in the frame here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, cool. So I'm going to use my foot wakers, but like I said, you don't have to. So I want you to, if you have the wakers, stand with your heels on the foot waker. So from the side, that would look like this. So you can see there, it's my heels on the wakers, but the balls of my feet and my toes are on the floor. So standing there, either on the wakers or just flat feet on the floor. First of all, if you feel like you want to soften your knees a little bit, feel free to do so. So you want to avoid like sort of locking or hyperextending the knees. You want to just have really relaxed thighs, really relaxed knees. Mine are a little too narrow. So you want your feet to be about hips width apart. So I'm going to widen mine out a little bit. There we go. That feels better. So now you can see my legs are right under my hips. My knees are right over my toes. So just standing here, I realize I'm headless. Let me back up a little bit so that I am not just some sort of mysterious creature here. So the first thing I want you to do is raise up one arm and bend to the opposite side. Just take a little side bend here. And then come on back up and do the opposite side. So raise up the other arm, bend to the opposite side. And then coming back to a neutral position. Now, I want you to do it again, and this time, I want you to notice as you bend, is your opposite heel remaining in contact with the foot waker? Or are you doing something like this? I'm exaggerating probably, but are you feeling that foot lift off the floor or the waker, or are you able to ground that heel down into it? Still a little headless, but you guys can see my feet, which is the most important thing. And then you're going to do the other side. So once again, you're going to bend over, and what's happening? Are you lifting up off the waker, or are you able to root down into it and still keep that foundation? So many of you probably, and myself included, this is how I discovered this. Many of you probably are lifting up off of the waker and not finding that connection down into the floor, which then of course creates the stable foundation for your pelvis, right? So now I want you to try, now that you've thought of that, and now that you're aware of that, I want you to try it again. And taking a breath, keep those knees soft, raise up that arm, bending over, and just imagine that there's like a magnet on the bottom of your foot connecting you into the floor or the waker, or maybe even glue or something like that, and see what that does differently in your pelvis, and then subsequently how that affects your rib cage as you fold over. Try the other side. When you're ready, you can do a little wiggling to just kind of recalibrate. Bring that arm up, take a breath, and folding over, rooting that opposite heel down into the floor or the waker, feeling that magnetism, that sense of connection, that sense of stability, and then coming back up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take you through these little exercises, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the implication of what you discovered, okay? So now that you've experienced that, it may have been a little eye-opening for you. You may have found that you did indeed lift off the floor, and I'm curious if you want to share in the comments if you noticed that you were not rooting down in and you were surprisingly lifting that foot off the floor or the waker. I'd be interested to hear that. So let's try then moving up the body. So that was the really simple, basic lower body test. Now let's move it up into the upper body a little bit and do the same thing sitting. So for this one, if you have the Yamuna black balls, that would be ideal. Otherwise, you can also sit on the floor for this. You will still be able to experience this. And if you only have, say, like the pearl or the gold, you can use this as well. So I'm going to kind of show you both options here. So I'm going to back up again. if you have the black balls, I want you to take one black ball each under each sit bone. Okay, so kind of like right there. I'll show it from the front and the side. And now I'm sitting on the floor, so it doesn't work as well on the floor, but if you're in a chair, that would probably be the best, chair or sofa, because then your legs are like actually, your feet are on the floor. For today, this will be fine. I can still show it like this. But if you do have a chair or sofa or something, that's probably going to be better. Let me show you from the side so you can kind of see exactly where they are on me. I should not have worn black pants today, so you can see this a little better, but you can see there. So your sit bones are the bones that when you're sitting, you feel them in the floor, right? Sometimes referred to as the sits bones or the sitting bones. Their actual name is ischial tuberosities. Okay, so you're going to place one ball under each ischial tuberosity. And again, if you're sitting in a chair, this is going to be a little bit easier to sense. I think I'm going to go ahead and cross my legs just for the sake of ease. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing here. Again, if you're on the floor, that's fine. If you were using just the pearl ball, you would sit with it between your sit bones, like so. Just be careful that you're not going to put direct pressure on your tailbone if you're using one bigger ball. You want it to be a little forward of your tailbone. Okay, so same thing, whether you're on the black balls, the pearl, or the gold, or the floor. Taking a breath. As you exhale, let's bring one arm up and let's tilt to the side. You can have your hand on the floor to kind of stabilize. Tilt to the side and come back up. Take another breath. Exhaling and tilting to the opposite side. Okay, now let's come back. Let's shake it out a little bit, do a little recalibrating. Now this time I want you to do it and notice what's happening. Is your sit bone lifting up off the ball or the floor, or is it staying rooted down in there? So here we go. Trying it again. Are you rooting down in, or are you kind of going somewhere like this? Try the other side. And right now we're not really changing it. You're just noticing what your typical sort of gut instinct is. So are you lifting off of it, or are you rooting down into it? You can kind of see the difference there. There I am off of it. There I am rooting down into it. Okay, so if you're lifting off of it, that's going to create a stability issue, right? And in all of these little tests that I'm showing you, what they are basically like little representations of how you're moving throughout the day. So we're using these seated positions to kind of gauge that, but if you're lifting off of the waker or you're lifting off of the ball, chances are every time you reach in front of you or you reach over to the side or whatever, you are lifting up off the floor and you are not stabilizing, you're not using your foundation, etc. These things might seem absolutely minor. And I guess in some ways they are minor, but these are huge indications of your movement patterning, how that patterning will serve you as you go through the aging process. And again, I'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's try this one more time, and this time I want you to really, really focus on that rooting down in or this plugging in to the opposite side. So again, we're going to take our breath. As you exhale, you can reach that arm up. Bend over to the side. You can use that other hand for stability. Root that sit bone down into the ball. You're keeping your pelvis essentially in a neutral level position as your upper body moves around that, right? This might be challenging, so if you need to hold it for a second and really find a way to let that drop, give it the time that you need. When you're ready, we'll do the other side. Taking a breath. Arm comes up and leaning over to the other side. Once again, plugging that opposite sit bone, opposite from the side that you're bending, down into the ball or the floor and coming back up. Now, if this was challenging for you, first of all, it might be that one side was really able to root down and maybe the other side wasn't. That's me. My left side always wants to come with me. My right side's like, I got this. So you might notice that there's one side that is really stable and one side that's not. But let's see what that can kind of translate into now. So if you really noticed, say that you were lifting up off of that, what your pelvis is essentially doing, and then your whole leg too, is tilting in a way that's not really very stabilizing. It's not going to facilitate optimal movement patterning as you do these other things throughout your day. So let's do one more level here. So we talked about the lower level and the middle level, And the next level, of course, is going to be from the waist up. And this one is probably the most eye-opening for me. And it's one I just recently discovered that I was doing probably not optimally, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to share this with you guys today, because it's kind of the veil has been peeled back recently for me as well. So we're going to talk now more about the sort of the shoulders. And before we do that, I want to say just quickly, this analogy that I'm about to give you is really loose, okay? But if you think about your upper body as almost being like a box. So you have your 2 shoulder points and your 2 hip points. Obviously, this is not a box. Obviously, this is a dynamic part of your body that can move in all ways. And I don't want you to think about moving around inside of a box. But I do want you to think about these landmarks, these sort of 4 points. Because if these 4 points are not sort of working in conjunction with each other, that's when we start to get unsustainable movement patterns. So what I mean by that is, ideally, you want these 2 top points to be more or less stacked over these 2 middle points of your body, right? And in the same way, not only do you want these 2 points to be stacked above these 2, but you also want, you don't want like one side really forward than the other. So you don't want your shoulders really twisted, but you also don't want your pelvis really twisted. So you can, in working with a lot of different people over the years, I've seen several common patterns where either one side is really lifted or one side is really forward, and that can be true with the shoulders too, really lifted or really forward. So these little tests that I'm giving you are going to highlight for yourself, do I have a twist? Do I have a torque? Am I lifted? Am I twisted in some kind of less than optimal way? Anyway, so let's get back to the shoulder. So for this one, I'm going to actually unplug you for a minute, and we're going to go over to a wall. So I want you to find a little wall space, and we do not need a ball for this. So let me get the best possible sort of orientation here. So what I want you to do is find a little slice of wall. Oh, Tara says, I feel like I felt the lift more in my hip. When I felt my heel magnetized, my hip felt more level and strong. Good. So that's where stabilization comes from, right? If one side's all like, you can't stabilize. And if you can't stabilize, eventually you're not going to be able to move freely and easily. And this is how you start to see how these little itty bitty things when you're younger turn into really big things when you're older. Okay, so finding that little slice of wall. Let's see here. Let's see if I can I think I need to push you back a little further. And I want you to set yourself up so that your feet are maybe like 6 inches to a foot from the wall. Let's see here. Okay, I gotta get it up. Just so that you can comfortably lean back into the wall. There we go, that's pretty good. So you want to feel like you can lean your upper back into the wall. If your feet are all the way against the wall, you're probably going to feel like you have to do something like this, which isn't what we want. So get yourself into a really kind of comfy place where it feels really organic to just lean your back against the wall. And then once you're there, I want you to bring your awareness to your shoulder blades. So feeling that you can actually kind of, communicate or become aware of each of your shoulder blades against the wall. So, and you might notice too that they don't feel the same. It might be that one is a little sharp or pokey into the wall, or maybe one's not really even touching the wall, or it might feel like you're really pushing one into the wall more than the other. Those are just examples, but they might not feel the same, and that's normal and fine. That's why we're doing this. So here you are, and you can also put the back of your head against the wall. Okay, so once you have felt this sense of both shoulder blades, and you could also think about that plugging in analogy or rooting or whatever kind of image works for you, but you want to feel like you're really connected to the wall. Now I want you to take a breath. As you exhale, you can raise one arm. Now I want you to do a little side bend just like we did before, and I want you to keep both of those shoulder blades connected to the wall. Let your other arm just hang. Make sure you're not doing something funky with that other arm. Don't let the shoulder lift, don't let anything weird go on there, and you're just tilting. And it might behoove you to think about that heel and that sit bone as well. Are you rooting the opposite one down? When you're ready, come back up, shake it out a little bit, give yourself a moment, take a breath. Both shoulder blades, once again on the wall. Arm comes up, other way now. Side bending the opposite way. Are both shoulder blades able to stay against the wall? Or are you finding that as you bend, you do something like this? Of course, I'm exaggerating again, right? But are you finding that you're doing something like that, or are you able to keep that, for want of a better term, flatness? Are you able to keep that flatness to your back as you bend? So this time we're going to try it again, and this time I want you to really think about that and see what your body has to kind of do to organize and adjust to make this possible. So, there might be, if you're doing this kind of thing, it might be something coming from down here, or maybe it's as simple as rooting that opposite foot down into the floor or the waker, right? So trying it again this time, really being mindful of keeping that connection of both shoulder blades. So here you go, taking a breath. As you exhale, you can bring your arm up, slide against the wall as you bend, keeping both shoulder blades attached. I'm hitting the window here, so I have to bring my head forward a little bit. But ideally, your head's going to be back on the wall as well. Coming up when you're ready, taking another breath. Arm comes up. Both shoulder blades stay connected. What do you have to do in your pelvis to make this happen? What do you have to do in your legs and feet to make this happen? Other things you might notice as you are doing this kind of rooting down, are you doing anything that you don't need to do, as an attempt to try this rooting down? So are you gripping your quads? Are you locking your knees? Are you doing something weird with your butt muscles? There's a lot of things that might be happening there that you want to check in with as well. Woo! Just tripped over my Pilates ring there. It would be funny if I had an injury from tripping over my equipment. Okay, so these 3 little tests are going to be huge in gauging how your movement will evolve as you age. So if you found that when you were doing any of these that there was the heel coming off or the sit bone coming off, or you were twisting as you folded, that's okay. Of course, that doesn't mean that you're going to have terrible pain as you age. That means that there's something that's not optimal in your structure / movement patterning that can and should be addressed so that you are aging sustainably, so that your movements are not over-recruiting here, under-recruiting there, so you're not creating compensatory patterns, so that you're not essentially creating repetitive stress over many years that result in injury, discomfort, restriction. I've seen it all. The oldest client I've ever worked with was 90. The youngest was 8. So I've seen like this huge overarching theme from a young age to an older age, and I see how little tiny tweaks here and there can really change things in the long run. So kind of think about these throughout your day. As you are driving and bringing your arms forward, are you lifting one side up off? Are you twisting it forward? These little tiny things are part of your overall awareness. So this is kind of what I do. I offer these programs that really break down your particular needs and your particular patterning, and I customize these programs for you. So if this is resonating for you and you're interested in chatting more with me, please give me a call or schedule a little time for us to chat, because I'd be happy to talk about this with you in detail. We can talk for 10 minutes if you want, or if you're interested in a little bit more of a kind of exploration, we could even just do like a little mini session where I give you just like one little routine that you can practice. But overall, this is what I want to bring to the world. I want to bring this concept of sustainable aging so that people feel good all the time, then they can find fulfillment, then they feel better, then they're kinder, then the world's a better place, right? So it really does all trickle down. So if you have any feedback to share about this, let me know. It was interesting to hear what you were saying, Tara. But again, this is the kind of thing that'll kind of pop up in your mind here and there throughout the day or throughout the week, and I'd just be curious to notice what you notice. So please do feel free to share. And again, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to chat, you can either just go to my website and contact me there, or you can email me or call me. Everyone knows how to get in touch with me. But this is what I want to bring to the world. This is my vision. This is my mission. Thank you all for being a part of it. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. So go about your day now, think about these ideas, implement them where it seems appropriate, and let me know how it goes. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Have a great one. Bye.